I'm going to start now, okay? Hello everyone, I'm Darla Drew, and this is our first edition of Writer's Block. It's a project by Backroom Productions, and it's sponsored by Arts Midwest. We thought of this project as a way to help local writers market themselves, get the word out, and we're working with the Cave Collective because they have the technology to help us stream as well as record for people that couldn't make it here. So instead of saying, too bad you couldn't make it anymore, we're actually using some of the things we learned during COVID to make sure that people have access. And we're working with local writers, whether they're young, old, people with disabilities. And that's some of the lessons we learned from COVID. We could go out and film some of these folks, talk to them, let them read, and they would never have to leave their homes. And so that was one of the things that we really wanted to focus on, was opening this up to a wider audience. So right now with me today is a local writer, musician, legend, writer, the columnist, whatever. This is Steve Thorpe right here, people.
Thank you.
Well, Steve, since I've introduced you, you better tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here.
Well, I grew up in Newcastle, Wyoming. Hit the road running out of town at 18, went to college, got drafted, decided that was a really bad deal, enlisted, served 4 years in the Army Security Agency. By the time that was over with, I'd had enough. I mean, I was done with corporate America. I got out, and I said to myself, never again anything remotely like that. And took the GI Bill, got an MA in creative writing from UC Davis, and sat home and wrote. When we got pregnant, it was tough. I mean, finally one night, she was all depressed. I said, look, what if I stayed home and took care of the baby? And she said, could you do that? And I said, well, yeah, I'm the oldest of 5, and I've changed a lot of diapers, prepared a lot of bottles. She said, would you? And I said, well, yeah, better than going to Sacramento and being a paralegal. It's something I really didn't want to do. And so I stayed home and wrote and took care of the kid. And that taking care of the kid was a big part of the inspiration for this novel.
Your novel, The Walking Wounded, was also inspired partially by your experience in Vietnam, and I wanted you to expand a little bit on that and how that...
I was never in Vietnam.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, go ahead.
I got the plate because I was in this outfit called the Army Security Agency, and when I left, they made me sign a paper that said, if I told anybody what I'd been doing, anything about it, for the next 10 years, I would get a $10,000 fine and 10 years in Leavenworth. So that was 1970.
So you're free to talk about it now.
I was a cog in a killing machine, and my job was to find them so we could bomb them. Chinese anti-aircraft in Laos. I mean, we weren't supposed to be there. They weren't supposed to be there. I learned things about my country that just, anyway, so I totally disaffected and decided I was going to write. I had a great-grandfather, or great-uncle, who wrote Westerns in the 30s and 40s. And I didn't read them as a kid. I should have. But Grandma and Granddad had this shelf of books. There were 6 or 8 books there, and these were special because Grandma's brother had written them. So that was a possibility, and I didn't want to deal with the public. And writing was great. I mean, I could just sit in the basement and just run around my imagination, and I got hooked on it. And finally, at about this, I think Walking Wounded was number 8. and the way it sold is typical New York. Okay, I sent it to a national endowment competition. I sent the first chapter, and I didn't get it. I mean, I've never gotten a grant I applied for. Or I did one, but there was no money in it for me. But anyway, so I sent this off, and I find out I didn't win. And yeah, okay. Typical. I mean, we've been here before. So one day I get this call from this agent at William Morris. And he said, I was reading for the National Endowment, and I read your chapter, and I liked it, and I wondered if you had finished the novel and if you wanted an agent. Well, a friend of mine was trying to hook me up with an agent in England at the time, and I said, well, I've got this thing hanging, but, you know, can I call you if it doesn't work out? And it didn't. And he ended up, he didn't, he said, okay, I'll take it without a contract for a year. It took him exactly a year to sell it. And it got published. Yeah. But I mean, it was.
What year was that, Steve? When did that happen?
Let's see, that was probably 80. Probably late 70s.
Okay, okay.
And it took, the editing process took 2 years. And crazy. I mean, you know, long letters and outlines and do this, and then I'd do it, and I'd have some reservations, and I'd write, you know, do another outline and write a 20-page letter, and this is back and forth like this for at least 2 years. And by the time the novel came out, I was sick of it. I didn't read it for 10 years. I mean, it was 10 years before I actually picked up the book and read it.
When you're talking about that 2-year period, is that when you were working with Barb Evenson, or is that?
No, that was New York.
Okay.
I mean, no, Barb, the editor at Black Hills Books she's amazing.
That's a part of Backroom Productions.
Right.
Barb helped me with this project. So.
And the technology was it took about a year. Google Docs and cell phones. You know, set on speaker, and we just would discuss things, and we were looking at the same manuscript in Google Docs, and she can change it, and I can change it, and it was wonderful. Not only that, she edits the way my mentor taught me. I had a mentor early on, before I started grad school, named Willa Gibbs. She wrote historical novels from sometime in the 40s to mid-60s, and oddly enough, had an affair with that great uncle who wrote the cowboy novels. I mean, it was an eerie thing when I met her, and we finally figured out that there was this connection. But she would sit down with me. She edited for me for $3 an hour, and we'd sit down. She'd take something I wrote, and she'd read it. And we're just sitting right together on the couch, and she'd get to something, and she said, "What does this mean?" And I'd try to explain it to her, and she'd keep pumping me. And finally, I'd say something. She said, "Write that."
Yeah.
And she also was a proponent of the notion that when you write something, you've got your conscious mind working on it, but your subconscious is throwing things in. And your job when you rewrite is to find those things and bring them out, because that's the heart of the novel.
I'm going to jump in here so I can get to some of the other things that you've done, but what inspires you to write? You talked a little bit about just your lifestyle. It kind of just made sense for you to be a hermit and do this kind of solo work. But what inspires you to get up and do this every day? I mean, it sounds like you went through 3 edits at the least of Walking Wounded. And so how do you keep working?
it's habit. I mean, you get started doing it, and I mean, people say, "Oh, you're so talented." It's obsession. It's you get into it, and you just can't not do it. I mean, I quit for, God, how many years? Sometime in the early to mid '90s, I just quit doing it after I came out here, because I discovered I could actually make a subsistence living playing my own songs. So I just kind of put the writing aside. Pandemic hits, and I'm isolating. I mean, there's no music. I can't. There's everybody's masked and scared and getting vaccines, and I'm pacing the floor. And finally, the light. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I think, well, geez. I was always figured when the music dried up, I'd go back to writing novels, and well, the music's dry. Let's go. And I got back at it. I rewrote 3 novels, finished a 4th. No, I rewrote 4 and finished a 5th. And then Barb and I did the new edit on Walking Wounded. We put back some stuff in it that Doubleday had me take out. And I actually like it a lot better this way. Plus, Barb saw some things that I finally managed to bring out. They're not obvious, but I think they work.
So you're saying an editor is integral to your writing, or to anyone's writing. You need to have that other person that can really tell you what's going on with your book.
It really helps. And writers groups are important, except you got to be careful. I was in a writers group in Sacramento that completely destroyed one whole novel. Because I was with these people, and they kept wanting to make my novel their story. And it took me a long time to figure out what was going on, but after I left California and left that, I got to thinking about it, and you can't do that. If you're going to be in a writer's group, you have to help the person make what they're writing better. You have to actually be an editor for somebody else, which is good, because then you can apply that to what you're doing.
Our dream for this group is to get enough people together that have experience that maybe they can serve as editors and mentors for some of the younger writers, or not even younger, just writers that are emerging at whatever time of life.
Exactly. And yeah, you don't have to be young to do this.
Yeah, and we need help for each other. We need to boost each other in Rapid City because our community is small. And but I'm finding there's so many writers here. I'm very surprised. And I'll be talking to someone and they'll go, "Oh, my nephew's a writer," or "My son does a great job of poetry," or things like that. So
we had a really fine writers group in Lead before COVID hit, and I mean, there's talk of getting back together finally.
That's good. Well, I read Walking Wounded. I really enjoyed it. I was kind of hesitant because I thought, okay, it's a war novel, but it certainly wasn't. It wasn't anything like that. It was certainly about recovery and healing and a lot of surprises in between. And I'd like to have you do some reading. When we started this group, we found that writers aren't necessarily readers. And so we're going to have to work on that too, maybe inviting some actors or some people in to read.
This young lady's going to help us.
Dorothy Rosby is here tonight. She has a public speaking for shy writers workshop she's going to be doing in the near future. So we're looking forward to that, helping some of our writers be able to read their work.
Get one of my cards before you leave. Let me know.
So Steve, would you like to kick us off on some of your work on Walking Wounded?
Sure. All right. Long story short, chapter 1, you meet these two guys, Sherwood O'Neill and Art Johnson. Okay, Sherwood, these glasses are annoying. Sherwood suffers from post-traumatic amnesia. When I wrote this, we hadn't even heard of PTSD yet. And it manifests itself as these seizures that he calls flip-outs, during which he goes through this weird dream sequence about what happened to him, how he got, what the accident was. but the accident itself is just not there. And he considers himself dead, partly from what he's heard the doctors say, and that recurs in these flip outs through the novel, and partly because he has this relationship with this young nephew, who at the time he has a relationship, the kid's 3, and he flips out, and he sees the effect it has on this child, and he just decides that he can't be close to people, people who care about him that much. So he's dead. He says he's a walking dead man. He's written himself off completely. Now Art Johnson lost both legs in Vietnam. He finds Sherwood in the VA hospital in Sunnyvale, and out of just compassion and probably a little motivation of his own, he takes this guy who's kind of being sidelined. He's off the end of a corridor, and he helps him through these flip outs and coaches him so they get these down to where Sherwood's functional. Now Sherwood in return acts as extra legs, extra mobility. He can push the wheelchair, and a buffer against the world, because Art's father is ashamed of him because his kid went off to war and came back without his legs. And I got that from a kind of an odd situation I knew about. But when Trump said that about McCain, I prefer my heroes uncaptured, it was like, wow, this was prophetic. Anyway, so part of Sherwood's job is to keep Art's family from getting him, because they want to take him and stick him away somewhere where he won't embarrass them anymore.
Steve, I'm going to leave the stage while you read your work. Okay?
All right. Okay, so basically what this section shows is you get a little bit of the flip out, so you get a sense of what Sherwood's going through. Then they have been living in a cabin south of Custer, up in the hills. And Sherwood goes to town one day, goes to the post office, gets her disability checks, goes to the music store. Art makes guitars, and they've got a music store that is selling them on commission, simply because they're veterans and these people are feeling good about them. Well, Sherwood he gets a letter that his sister's dead, and he's the last living relative for his nephew, who's now 4. And he has to go back. I mean, he's got to do something for this kid, but he doesn't want to get too close. He just wants to go make sure he's in a good place. At the same time, the guy in the music store says, "Hey, there's been this detective in here looking for Art Johnson. Is Arthur in trouble?" And it's like, whoops, Art's father found him. So they're on an airplane just about to arrive in San Francisco at the start of this section. It goes like this. We're in the flip out. He's moving toward a truck where Kenny pulls rifles from the racks and hands them to the men who file past. Then, nothing. His time has a hole in it. In place of events, Sherwood finds terror, slippery grass like quicksand, air that burns in his chest. The terror is familiar and not so bad this time. Kenny seems to be near him but leaving. Sherwood wants to follow. Instead, he feels hands that hold and lift, needles in his arms, tubes that dangle beside his face, bright lights shine in his eyes. Men in smocks and masks pass back and forth, and he asks them to leave him alone. The dream drags on like a snake down hospital corridors that shift and echo and change. Always the same green walls, the same red blood, alcohol and vitamin scents and antiseptic air. Everywhere he asks what has happened to Kenny, and finally a voice answers with the question, "Where did you see him last?" Koza. Was that in Saigon? Another person, a woman, is present. Sherwood can't turn his head to see her. He was brought in from Okinawa, doctor. How the hell did he get a heart full of shrapnel in Okinawa? An accident. The one he keeps talking about, Kenny, was killed. Killed, Sherwood repeats. The word doesn't seem to have meaning. He's scheduled for surgery in the morning. Coughing, the doctor flips through a page on a clipboard. I see. The nurse comes near the bed. Are you awake? Do you know what happened to you? He opens his mouth to tell her. Nothing comes. He can't move, and pains shoot from his shoulders to his groin. When he tries, but he has no images. Heart full of shrapnel. He has no recollection of it. None at all. I was killed, he says. Leaning near his face, the nurse shakes his shoulder. Are you all right, mister? The pain is unbearable. A babble of voices around him, and Art says, leave him alone. He's having a blackout. 5:24 and 8 seconds, Woody. 9 seconds, 10 seconds. How much time? 3 minutes. I'm coming out, Sherwood says. 3 minutes. He can feel the faint vibration of the airplane through his seat back, and that helps him place himself before he opens his eyes. Are they going to get worse, he wonders? Pulse got up to 130. No, it's longer this time, but not a hard one. Sherwood feels Art lower his list to the armrest. A worried-looking stewardess kneels in the aisle. Faces pokes over the seats ahead. I'm okay. He stretches his arms and laughs at himself for hoping the gesture might make it appear he's simply waking up. If I can sit a minute and just get my bearings, he tells her. Would you like to come back where you can be alone? No, he says. I can have the pilot radio ahead for the doctor to be waiting. Art can take care of me. You sure? Her eyes fix on Art's tucked, empty pant legs. He's sure, Art says. We'll need the wheelchair when we land, that's all. She hesitates a moment more, then rises and moves down the aisle. One by one, the curious faces withdraw. I'm having my doubts about this, Sherwood whispers, if it makes you feel any better. It doesn't, Woody, you know it doesn't, but if they get worse, we can handle it. Just promise me you won't let my family get me. Right. San Francisco Airport is too close. If they get to me, you'll come get me out, right? I'll do it, Art. You know I'll do it. Art nods, but he doesn't look sure. Finally, he turns away, steers through the window, withdrawn, until his eyes almost look blank. Sitting rigid in his seat for fear any movement might drop his resistance and let the dream come flooding back, Sherwood watches Art out of the corner of his eye. You're not in such good shape yourself, old friend. Haven't seen you like this since before we left the hospital for good. Announcement of the arrival brings them both alert. San Francisco time is 4:30. The temperature is 52 degrees and it's raining. I'm going to miss the snow, Art, Sherwood says. Art doesn't answer. The stewardess brings the wheelchair as soon as the plane is stopped, and she keeps the way clear so they are among the first off. Sherwood's paper sack and both their military overcoats are piled on Art's lap as he hurries to pace with a strong thrust of his hands. Come on, Woody, rent us a car and get us out of here. I feel eyes, and I have a bad feeling about this. It's like an ambush. Bus or taxi, Sherwood says, as car agencies only rent to licensed drivers. I forgot. Art twists around. How's it look behind us? Relax, we're surrounded by people. What can happen? If that guy figures out we split, if he figured out about the plane, one phone call is all it would take. I'm moving as fast as I can, Sherwood says. Watch out. Damn, the guy with the coffee. I see him. The man is in his 50s, tall and dressed in a gray wool suit with a dark tie. He leaves a styrofoam cup on the counter of a closed concession stall with a careless gesture that suggests familiarity with styrofoam cups in airports. A pretty woman in nurse's white responds to an impatient wave of the hand that has just discarded the cup and follows him into the concourse. Automatically, Sherwood angles a chair to pass around the man and the nurse, but Art breaks with his hands, brings him to a stop. What's the matter? It's no use, Woody. The man steps up to Sherwood, hand extended. You would be Sherwood O'Neill, he says. His shake is firm. I'm Arthur Johnson Sr. If you want to bring the chair, I have a car waiting. Sherwood tightens his grip, ready to run, but Art has locked the wheels. He sits forward, braced on his arms, his mouth an awkward gap in his face. The nurse has come up behind Arthur Sr. She's small, a little taller than 5 feet, with a tiny waist and skinny legs. Dark, short hair surrounds her face like a fringe and seems to tumble down her neck in small, loose curls. Her eyes are brown and damp, and they're locked onto Art's face. "Karen," he says. Her feet scuff the dirty floor. "When I answered the ad, I didn't know it would be you. I wrote, but you didn't answer." "He got you? You?" She shakes her head, but can't continue to meet his eyes. "Thank you for bringing my son home, Sherwood. Come along." Arthur Sr. claps a hand on his shoulder and watches Worry now, ready for a chase. "Mrs. Johnson would like to meet you, to thank you in person." "Remember your promise, Woody." "I won't forget." "Either bringing her back off, young man. I'm losing patience, and you're blocking the way here." "Please come, Art," the nurse says. "I'll help you. I really can. You, of all people." Face flushed as if she might cry, she looks at him again. "How else could I even have found you?" "Take the chair," Arthur Sr. orders her. "Enough fooling around." He turns on Sherwood. "What's the matter with you? Do you want money? Is that it? Do you have to bribe you to have my own son?" His hand comes out of his pocket to point at Sherwood with a tight roll of bills. "No, no." Spreading his arms in a gesture of surrender, Sherwood backs away from the money. "You'll write, Art?" "I'll have to." "You don't need money, huh?" A corner of Arthur Sr.'s mouth lifts in a hint of contempt. He waits until he is sure the nurse has replaced Sherwood behind the chair. Then, without a word having passed between him and his son, he does a smooth-about face and strides down the concourse. The nurse follows, guiding the chair with professional ease. Should do something, O'Neill, but what? Alone, Sherwood can't act. He can hardly make sense of the fact that he's more than 1,000 miles from the bed he woke in this morning, out of circulation for too long, off in other countries, in hospitals or tiny apartments within walking distance of the psychiatric clinic, in the isolated cabin. His own country feels foreign to him. The thought that he might have come back to do something for Jamie seems crazy. He couldn't do anything for Art. He hasn't even managed to keep his few possessions. The overcoat and the bag of shaving gear are now gone out of sight with Art in his chair. Slowly the movement of the deplaning passengers sweeps him into the main lobby, there to be jostled out of lines for several shuttles into the city until he gives up and pays a cab to take him to the Greyhound depot. People in the rain, loitering on the dirty sidewalk in front of the bus terminal, make Sherwood uneasy. Inside is worse than out. Scrub tile floors, molded plastic chairs with TV sets bolted to their reinforced arms. Thick odors of whiskey, wet wool, warm skin. Alone now, he has to look at this place and these people in a way he doesn't quite understand, and he feels threatened. He can't reconcile all this with a postal clerk or Mr. Jorgensen with memories of bargaining in Okinawan open-air markets, tiny people with lively eyes full of good humor, and the ubiquitous courtesy of the Oriental bow. Here in the depot, everyone who crowds around him stares with dull, indifferent eyes that bulge or sink into pasty-looking skin. They don't respond to one another. Tired mothers try to shush boisterous children who disobey until they're caught and held immobile to scream themselves into mimicry of the pervasive stupor. My God. His voice is absorbed by background noise. A gust of foul-smelling air hits his damp clothing and he shivers. Ceiling speakers blare unintelligible instructions. And Sherwood approaches an open ticket office. A pock-faced man stares at him. "Ticket to Dauville," Sherwood says finally. He gropes in his pocket and comes out with a $100 bill. It's too big and he knows it. He tries again and again until he finds a 20 that he pushes across the counter. The man takes the bill, makes change, and slides it back with the ticket on top of the money. "Gate 6, he says. Cramming paper and coins into his shirt pocket, Sherwood follows a sluggish flow of bodies through wide doors and into a long shed broken into sections by banks of coin-operated lockers. Cigarette butts and pieces of broken glass litter the asphalt. A section of newspaper stuck to the floor in a puddle of soda pop catches his eye with the headline, "Ford tells Congress the State of the Union is not good." Feel better when you get out of this city, O'Neill, he tells himself, but the Bay Bridge, then countless strung together suburbs pass relentlessly. Sherwood had hoped for vague humps of distant mountains and the occasional twinkle from an isolated farmhouse. Instead, he is assaulted by light, which is one of his triggers, by the way. Approaching headlights and a slow-shifting pattern of taillights, lighted houses, sheds, factories, chain restaurants, shopping centers along the freeway, lights of vehicles on roads to right and left, porch lights, street lights, neon and mercury vapor in Fairfield, Travis Air Force Base, Vacaville, navigation lights and landing lights that spin and flash and whirl through the sky overhead, and beyond it all, halo after halo of reflected light from distant cities that glow against the night clouds in a haze of rain. Another flip out, O'Neill. You couldn't handle one without art. He ignores the question, but can't do it any more than he can keep his... He tries to ignore the question, but can't do it any more than he can keep his eyes closed. When the driver announces Daville, Sherwood stumbles off the bus with hardly an idea of where he is. That's it. Thank you.
And you did all that without a drink of water.
That's coffee. I have to stay awake to drive home.
Well, we have exceptional talent in the Black Hills in many of the disciplines of the arts. But in this particular writer's block, we're going to explore the writers of the Black Hills. And I'd like to thank Steve Thorpe once again for being with us to talk a little bit about his process. Up next is Anna Davidson Martinez. She's a poet and she's pissed. So we'll have Anna up next. And she'll be here by film. We went out and did an interview with her last Monday, and she read some of her poetry for us. So that'll be up in just a few minutes.
And I did bring some books that I'm selling. $10 for the paperback, $20 for the hardback.
Over there.
Let's get out of the way and let Anna go.
So I think you guys that are here really understand how impressed I was with Steve's writing and his style, the way he expresses himself, and it's a really unusual story of two vets banding together to get through this thing called life. Once again, I'd like to thank the Arts Midwest for allowing us to do this series. They granted us some funds to pay the artists to actually be here. That's a new thing in the Black Hills. We're paying the authors, also able to give some money to the Cave for their expertise in technology, and also to rent this space.
Carl, what is Arts Midwest? I've not worked with him. I don't know.
Arts Midwest is funded by the NEA, National Endowment for the Arts, and some of their money comes through South Dakotans for the Arts, or excuse me, South Dakota Arts Council. But this is a separate COVID gig grant, and that's why they want us to do some actual live shows with the artists here in the Black Hills and the writers. So that was kind of an exciting thing for us because that I know of, it hasn't been done streaming, and it hasn't been done here that I know of. And like I said, we keep finding more authors, and that's a really exciting thing. You guys can tell me when I can move. Like I said, this is our first edition, so we're going to get Anna up on the screen, and I will move out of the way.
Thank you.
This is also put on by Backroom Productions. Backroom Productions has been on around the Black Hills for about 40 years now, doing low-cost or no-cost events. A lot of performances by musicians. So this is our first foray with the writers. Are you ready for this? Okay, thank you. Hello and welcome to Writer's Block. I'm Darla Drew. I'm with I'm going to start again, sorry. Backroom
Take
Productions. Not
Okay.
Backroom Productions. Hi, welcome to Writer's Block. I'm Darla Drew with Backroom Productions. And we're here with Anna Davidson Martinez. She's a well-known poet, writer, just all-around artist. And we're here to talk to her today in her home in Spearfish. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Darla. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
Ah,
So, let's just take this from no one knowing who you are. Where are you from? What brought you to the hills? How'd you get here?
I got here. I was born in Yankton, brought up in Lead. I was adopted,
Oh.
brought up in Lead, and all my formative years really happened in Lead. And then we moved to Omaha. Oh boy.
That's a big change.
Yes, and then when my dad finished a residency in psychiatry, he moved back to South Dakota. So I ended up graduating from high school in Sioux Falls,
Oh.
and then he took a job here at Fort Meade,
Mm-hmm.
and we just kind of toddled along, and by that time the family rebel was really in deep doo-doo. So I escaped to Chicago for 30 years.
Oh.
And when I retired from the Chicago Tribune, it was time to come on back. To come
Now,
home.
hold on. You wrote for the Chicago Tribune?
I did not write for the Tribune.
Okay.
I was in production.
Okay. Oh, production. Okay.
Yeah, that's
I-
the fun part.
I understand you did something else really fun in Chicago as well. You were part of Second City when you were
Yes,
there?
that was amazing.
I'm sure.
I worked with Del Close,
Yeah.
who just basically is the godfather of improv.
Del Close spent a summer at the Black Hills Playhouse.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, okay. Well, we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, he's crazy. He was crazy. He was totally crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And the skull that he bequeathed his skull to the Goodman Theater in Chicago.
So he started Second City, and then you worked
No.
No.
Bernie Solins was basically the owner of Second City. Del was kind of the problem child, brilliant director, druggie, crazy person who he kept hiring and firing. And he finally hired him for quite a while. So there were many, many classes and many touring companies that he formed for Second City.
I think I read that about him, yeah. He's an interesting guy, but you were there as a woman writer?
Not as a writer, but basically the director's girlfriend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wasn't forking out money, but I was invited to the workshops and got to work with some really brilliant people.
I hear you didn't like Bill Murray
I
that much.
hated Bill Murray. He had this, I'm going to be a star and screw everybody else. So he was not very gracious to the people that were supporting him.
So who else might we know from that group?
Not Tino and Sana. He was a pal of Belushi, but I missed Belushi by a year. But Jim Stahl and his wife,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Meg Stahl, worked with them. Nicest people on earth, just really great to work with.
Wow, you must have been very talented to be part of that group. I mean,
Well,
they don't
I
let
was
just
in the-
anybody in.
I was in the third touring company.
Oh,
And it
okay.
was kind of like, okay, we like you, so, come on, we want to work with you.
Were you writing poetry at that time, or when did that evolve?
That happened with a PC.
Oh,
Yeah, I had no idea what was going on with me. And I was going to some of the coffee houses and, taking kind of a little tiny shot at it. Working on one of those old clunky typewriters that didn't do it. And it was a struggle. But finally, what ended up happening is I was just able to like grab onto a PC and it short circuited stuff in my brain. Because we didn't realize that I had these neurological deficits that they can diagnose now, but couldn't back in the day.
Okay.
So,
But somehow that inspired you or guided you
oh,
to
the Second City was amazing, and I still use a lot of the principles that I learned in Second City in the poetry.
Okay.
So-
I understand your poetry is not exactly the stuff you'd read at a tea party, say.
No, no, I was the first one, I think, in 2002 when my first book was published, Notes from the Badlands. When that was published, I was the one that went, yep, I'm an incest survivor and childhood sexual abuse survivor, so I'll tell you what, let's talk about it. And it was like, too painful to think about, ain't gonna happen. But it did.
It did.
And then the Me Too movement started, and it's like,
Did that heal you even at that point to be able to say that and have
Oh,
it
yeah.
published? Okay.
yeah, it was amazing. But watching my parents' friend was even funnier because it was like, oh, we read this wonderful review in Panache, and isn't it great? And it's like, you miss something.
Yeah.
You miss something deliberately because childhood sexual abuse is one of those subjects that it's still too painful to put out there.
It's still taboo in a lot of ways. You just,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know.
and this is South Dakota,
Yeah, it is.
and this is West River.
Mhm.
So,
So you took your poetry and you kind of channeled those feelings and kind of let people know even when it really wasn't a time we were talking about this.
oh yeah,
Yeah, and you kind of just put that into your work.
yeah. And that was the first one. And the second, I can't believe 5 books. 5 books? What? I handed you the manuscript for 1 book, and now we've got 5 books. And it's fun. And I think I let, who is that black guy, Larry, he's always at all the festivals of books. Lawrence Biggs, I asked him, hey, would you like to write the preface for this? He hasn't spoken to me since. And not that but my, the one thing that doing the book Letters to Assholes did is it exposed the racism that I learned at my, dad's knee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got 5 books now?
Yep.
Okay, can you tell me what those are? Because I did read about Letters to Assholes, and I wanted to know more about that, of course. Oh, can you name those 5 publications?
Oh, just another recovering Presbyterian.
Okay.
Grateful recovering Presbyterian, I think. And cats. Cats. My life with cats.
I know you like cats.
1 cat. Only 1.
Okay.
I only have 1 cat.
Okay. So you're not the crazy cat lady. You just
Not
need
yet.
one. Okay.
No. Yeah. And, okay. Letters to Assholes. Live and in the Flesh. Oh, God.
And your Badlands.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, Badlands. That was 2003. So,
Okay.
but there's okay. I got the brain farts. That's a bad thing about
That's
getting
fine.
old. My short-term memory
Oh boy,
is shot.
I'm there with you, Anna. Yeah.
Well, it's like we just named him yesterday or something. So it's
Yeah.
like I got no idea.
Well, Josh, the cameraman, and I ended up at Lead looking for you today, so you got nothing on us, we got nothing on you.
I'm just like, okay. Can we just kind of cut loose and laugh on this one? Oh, Steve Ewing in Minari. He is Second City.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all familiar. So, when you want to read a poet, do you find something local that you could read, or do you mainly go with national authors, or just not not reading?
Well, there's a poets that really get to me, Joy Harjo.
Oh,
When I saw her read She Had Some Horses, that is one of the most brutal things. And she just went head on. And I went, I want to be like that when I grow up.
she is great.
Yeah, so, can't remember her name, there's another one.
Well, we'll just talk, and if it comes, it comes. You know?
Yeah, and hopefully you can edit the daylights out of this.
I don't think we need to. I think we're great doing it the way we are.
Yeah,
So,
well,
you
we're
know,
just kind of, I think we're warming up.
I like natural conversations, but you know, so when you are looking for inspiration, does it come from something you've experienced? Do you somehow go outside yourself and find these things that come from
That whole
ether?
process, that whole thing of creative flow, and it I think every creative person in the world, you know, everybody from Richard Dyson, the physicist, they all go into this, you know, when they're really hitting it, and you're really in the zone, you're in that creative flow, and you can tell you've been there by, oops, I gotta go pee, it's that I haven't eaten, and I've been glued to the, for 3 hours, and I got a punchline, I got a poem.
Oh, okay.
And it's just, there's not a thing of going outside, or outside is kind of pretty, I like to watch the deer, and, you know, but, and there's a groundhog out there too, which is a lot of fun. But when you're in the process, you're definitely in that state of creative flow. And a lot of it comes from within, because it's always kind of exploring, because I look in the mirror and say, well, where did I get that face? Yeah. Oh, I kind of miss the, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, you're starting to, I didn't know that you started to write poetry just like in 2002. That seems kind of fairly recent.
When I left 2097, and I realized I was really pretty good at it.
Okay.
And then when Biff Malibu was still in business, and I love that place. And when they were still in business, I was trying to organize some kind of a reading, some kind of a poetry event, and I met with the typical Deadwood lead resistance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think poetry is a hard sell, just overall.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know,
Yeah,
it's
like, what do you want? Do you want Hallmark, which most people seem to prefer?
Yeah.
You know, that kind of sentimental, icky stuff.
So how would you, do you have like a little catchphrase that tells us who you are? No?
I still don't know sometimes.
Bad bitch or anything like that?
Oh, God, no. No, I think I deserve better than that.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean, it's just, why? I mean, I think women, more than anything else, need to support each other. Yeah, okay,
yes.
Don't get me started. My tattoo is the mirror of Venus with the fist holding a bunch of flowers, and I thought about it for 40 years. You know, somebody just called me Grandma Feminazi, and I went, huh?
Oh, gee.
It's like, no, we fought for that stuff way back in the late 60s, early 70s, and now we've been kicked back that again.
We're kind of short on time, but I think this might run over just a bit because Anna is just fascinating. And one of the things she's doing now with her creative flow, if you will, is these beautiful beaded rocks. And she sells, excuse me, nice, I drop it. But she sells these online and has a beautiful collection. Where would somebody go to look at these?
Oh, Artifacts, Antiques, and Art on Main Street. Bonnie Halsey Dutton's store.
Okay.
She's amazing. Oh God, that woman is so amazing.
She is amazing. Yeah,
and she's such a wonderful teacher too.
Well, she's got these gorgeous, I mean, just intricately beaded works, and she's got lots of different colors, lots of shapes, sizes. We just grabbed this one because it was close to the camera. All of them are equal value. I mean, they're just gorgeous.
Yeah, and they're
So-
fun, and they have personalities, and she's got one called Deadwood Dick that just kind of jumps out of the display cabinet and gets
But-
broken.
Can I get this online too?
Yeah, you can, on Facebook, and
Where do I go?
just
Anna?
Anna Davidson Martinez on Facebook. I'm there.
Okay.
It's pretty easy to find because I'm the only one in Spearfish. So.
Okay.
But yeah, I will sell them. I will part with them.
Yeah.
These are my babies, and I don't think I'm the only one doing those, and those I think are an Anna original.
Oh, I would.
So
I would
and they don't conflict with anything that the native, the beating that the native women do around here.
So Anna is always interesting, always reinventing herself in some way, in some art form. And, you know, we're really interested in her poetry today, and she's going to do a little read for us. So we're excited to hear that as well.
Oh,
And so, thank you, Anna. I really appreciate what you've done for the Black Hills just by living here, being here, and bringing your talent to all of us.
well,
So
thank you.
thank you very much. I really enjoyed our talk today.
Okay.
That wasn't quite the edited clip, we transferred the wrong one, but, and then here's the review.
My work is about exploring how I became who I am now. And I was born in Yankton, raised in Lead, as the adopted daughter of a non-company doctor and his wife. They had great expectations of me. I was supposed to be a concert pianist or a doctor. And as a middle child, my fated role was to be the family rebel. My mother would attempt to keep me in line verbally, which was fruitless. She wanted a good child, which was impossible. Okay, Sabbath child. I ride the furious whirlwind and will reap it later. Born bathed in the autumnal essence of Diana's light, haunted by that silly nursery rhyme, I refuse that Midwestern stoic politeness. I will throw eggs at the wall and grind the shells into component molecules to fertilize my indoor garden. Oh, screw the Bonnie Bright good and gay, although few of those curses might be true. I will have my outburst of swift rage from my predestined bad temper. I demand your attention to my 75 years and hard fought for wisdom. I command your respect in spite of my love of muttering so-called obscenities. I am a creator in my own elite world, making small, beautiful, sparkling, durable trinkets. Okay, nothing in life is static and people can change and evolve. I changed and grew through the decades until at 41, I was forced to confront my mortality for the first time. Breast cancer is not a gift I would wish on anyone, but ultimately it was a gift and an agent of great changes in my life. I can live fearlessly and joyously. Decorating my body, a short biography in hats and shoes. I don't remember not having to wear shoes or clothes. When I was 10, I had a Davy Crockett coonskin cap and had high-top sneakers and moccasins. In between, there were training bras and bows, perms, bobs, DA haircuts, and tight French braids that pulled my eyelids back like Asian eyes, and braces. At 17, I wore unflattering, bulky sweaters that covered the self-inflicted scars on my arms and hid my hair under a bandana because I thought it looked cool. At 19, I wore a beaded headband, John Lennon glasses, and lived in t-shirts and jeans. At 21, I wore a tricorn hat with a yippee button and no bra. I was the cover girl on Bluegrass Unlimited that year, playing one of George's pre-war Martin dreadnoughts. At 27, it was a beige wool beret that made me look exotic and very European. I wore the off-the-shoulder French bras that were very sexy. At 28, I had a straw hat with cherries on it, just for fun, and never wore it out of the house, but my girl child loved it. That hat was the beginning of being crazy, or maybe the beginning of waking up from being crazy. At 30, I wasn't paying much attention, but lived in leotards, skirts, and high heels, and wore no makeup. I left the beret at home. At 34, I lived in well-cut blazers, tight jeans, and fried boots. At 40, I wore combat boots because my hips didn't roll right, and I needed the weight on the end of my legs. At 42, I started to wear beaded baseball caps and realized I was terrified of bears. At 44, my head was bald, so I wore moccasins and huge flashy earrings because the surgeons gave me that one cute boob. At 47, I stopped being crazy and considered buying a new straw hat with root beer colored rose on the crown. I'm comfortable with my battle scars. At 72, I got a tattoo. I changed my name to something pretty and wear whatever is clean, go barefoot and braless, sans hats. I'll swear as I please. Never mind watching my language. I suit myself and I still lose my goddamn mittens. I became more and more self-aware and able to look inward and take responsibility for my adult decisions. I was able to listen without being defensive or aggressive and to take risks. I was finally able to laugh at myself and at the absurdities life throws at us all. So my expertise is self-deception. For instance, if I eat a whole container of Oreo Thins and wash them down with caffeine-laden Slim Fast high-protein shake, it's only 180 calories, it's fine, and I'll still lose weight. But it's okay for me to break the Nestle boycott because the stuff tastes so good. The older I get, the better my mastery of sorting your crap from my crap, and my bullshit antennae vibrate at a frequency that drives me over somebody's edgy delight and particularly nasty gossip because I'm supposed to be wise. Old age forces me to take a second look at my mortality and plan for a future in the midst of a global pandemic and the possibility of leaving a huge mess behind for my heirs should it be my time to walk on. I wish to leave with as few regrets as I can and take up the unfinished business in my next life. So I have my gimme list because death is the ultimate metamorphosis. And this is this crone's gimme list. I want a big gold cloisonné fish like in Cien Años de Soledad, jointed and jangly on a gold chain to remind me of my last 100 years of solitude. I want chicken and dumplings for dinner and a male friend or family member across the table from me. I want to spend time on the beach with other women or throw myself in front of bulldozers in protest. I want to learn something new every day and to speak Mandarin fluently. I want to teach a child how to bead on a loom and to bake a cake and to swear in German. I want to skip and jump and maybe learn to dance or ski. I want to be able to get up by myself and slap big city taxi cabs on the trunk with huge neon stickers that say, "Asshole!" The closer I come to shucking off the cocoon of mortality, the more willing I am to leave with my Grim Reaper friend. We all have last wishes, but no control over what happens once we've decided we're gonna walk on. So, keep those preachers away. Send in the artists and musicians, the drummers, the strummers, composers and poets, mystic and sacred whores, for they are closer to God and immortality and throw a damn fine party. They are the ones who soothe the grief, wipe the tear, bring joy to gloomy, weepy celebrations, and waltz with those gentle guides back to the spinning galaxies at the edge of the universe. please keep those damn preachers away.
So, excuse me? I should probably wind things up. So what'd you think of Anna Martinez? She's really a delight. And she wanted to thank the South Dakota Arts Council for grants for some of her books. So that's how she's gotten them published. We hope that you will have enjoyed tonight and that you'll come back to these writer's blocks. We plan to have them the third Thursday of each month and go for 6 months. And then if the interest is there, we'll go even longer. Because I said earlier, we keep finding more pockets of talent. So I'd like to thank Arts Midwest. I'd like to thank the Cave Collective. Thank our audience tonight and our great writers, Steve Thorpe and Anna Davidson Martinez. And I hope that you'll find something great to read. That's it, guys.